You're on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another. This is part two, so I shouldn't say another. It's part two in a series. It's a school improvement plan, and the first Jaminar we had with school improvement plan was created by Miss Janine Jackson and Mrs. Radigan, who is a stalwart in the research behind the Jaminar. Okay, and because we divided up into three parts, we had the first Jaminar for the school improvement plan back in April, and then we decided that we will have a second one, and so this is the part two, and then we're going to have a part three as well. But these Jaminars, they for school improvement plans geared towards helping middle managers and assistant principals and principals to help them more effectively plan and write the school improvement plan, because we all know that is very difficult. We looked at how we collect data. Where do we get data? The source of our data for school to write school improvement plans. So Mrs. Radigan looked at those in the previous Jaminar. And so she's going to even go deeper now with part two. So part two is fulfilling two questions. Okay. The questions two and three of the SSE process. using the data that you probably would have heard about in the previous Gemini. So this one is very, very important, and it's right in the middle of things. And so we have invited our special guest, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer. She is the Chief Inspector at the NEI, the National Education NEI, National Education Inspectorate. I'm even tripping over my words here. And she's going to talk to us briefly. It was very difficult to get her on because she's very busy, but a very eloquent and hardworking stalwart in the education system. We find it fit that we to get to hear her voice in this time. So welcome everybody. Everybody, you probably know me already. The chair of the Jamaica Diaspora Education Task Force, and I'm just here very briefly to introduce Mrs. Dwyer, and she's going to talk to us briefly, and then we're going to hand over to Miss Janine Jackson. Miss Janine Jackson is going to talk to you for a little bit, and then hand over to Mrs. Jadine Radigan, and she's going to take it away with the what they call the meat of this evening. I want to say a special thank you to all of them. Mrs. Dwyer, thank you so much for coming on, and we're gonna thank you again in the end. But also thanks to Mr. Shaker Winter for giving us the support always behind the scene. And she will even talk to you if we see something like we're missing it, like a question or anything, any updates or anything at all. We want to thank her too for working mostly in the background. So welcome everybody. Thank you for sparing a few minutes, like more like an hour and 20 minutes out of your time this evening to talk and to share and to also listen. Make sure you have your notepad to take notes. Very importantly, if you have questions, drop it in the chat in YouTube. Drop it in the chat, and one of us will get it over to our presenters, and one of them will answer your question. Okay. Please also put your name and your schools where you're calling in from, so that we know where you're coming in from, you're representing, and we can also big you up as we go along throughout this program. We're very grateful for you to be here. It shows that you really value education as much as all of us do value education. So let me introduce to you a stalwart in education, a person who has devoted all her life to education on various levels. Okay, I'm introducing none other than Mrs. Maureen Dwyer. She is currently the Chief Executive Officer or Chief Inspector of the National Education Inspectorate, the NEI, and many of us have heard about the NEI quite a lot because of inspection. The NEI has oversight responsibility for ensuring that quality education is delivered to all students at the primary and secondary levels of education in Jamaica. The National Education Inspectorate produces an annual report that substantially informs the ministry's State of Education report, which is presented in the Jamaican House of Representatives, which is the lower house in Jamaica Parliament. Okay, Mrs. Dwyer has served in various capacities at the Ministry of Education and Information, including education officer, education planner, school board representative, and president of the Education Officers Association. So she wears many hats, and she has a wealth of information that we want her to just share with us. Okay. Prior to joining the Ministry of Education, she has taught geography at the high school level as well as served as head of department. Mrs. Dwyer has extensive training in the field of education and related disciplines. She holds a Master of Science degree in Public Administration from the University of the West Indies, as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree in Geography with honors. So she knows her stuff. Okay, currently she is concluding her doctoral research at the University College London, the Institute of Education, where she is pursuing studies in international education. So we're going to engage her in that even more as she completes her doctoral studies or doctoral research, which is very good. So everybody across the Caribbean and even internationally should call on her to share her knowledge as she goes through all of this. Okay, please welcome. You can put your virtual hands together and welcome Mrs. Dwyer on the platform. Mrs. Dwyer, I know I talk a whole lot. Over to you so you can share with us. Okay.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Dice.
Yes.
And the team from the Education Task Force. To your guest speaker, Mrs. Rattigan, good afternoon.
Can you come on camera or you want to be off?
I want to be off camera, if I may.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, go ahead. You're coming in very, very nicely.
Okay, so thank you so very much for having me. We have been tracking school improvement planning in the Jamaican education system for, I would say, in a formal way for the last 10 years. And I must say, as an inspectorate, we think that this is a very important area of leadership in the school. You said it quite well when you said middle leaders and or principals and so on. Those who are involved in the leadership element in school should really be persons who have a good idea of what it means to plan for improvement. And so we've been tracking that. And in 2015, when we finished our historic baseline study of the Jamaican education system, we found this to be a weak area simply because over 40% of our schools were rated unsatisfactory in this area. And even those that were rated well, most of them were only satisfactory. In other words, we had not quite developed a culture of planning and using data. So I am really pleased to see that you have come into this area to give our system support. And so we reported on that, and the education officers in the system would have been very, very instrumental in working along with their schools and working along with leadership teams to ensure that this area was more developed. Out of our work in the first round, the first cycle of inspections, I believe every school is mandated to have a school improvement plan and to do self-evaluation. And of course, the NEI would go in and do the inspections. So a whole school improvement framework is what we operate in the Jamaican system as a matter of policy. I'm pleased to say that in 2020, when we had completed another cycle of inspections, we found there was a 22% percentage point increase and improvement in school improvement planning in the system. What this means is that more schools were involved in the process of planning, more schools were using data, more schools understood the value of tracking improvement in their schools. And so this is an improvement over what we saw in 2015. Is this enough? Certainly not, because when we look at the data, again, we're seeing that most people are bundled in the area of satisfactory. Now, we want our school leaders to be good planners. It takes the trouble out of doing your work on a day-to-day basis. If you have a blueprint for what it is that you're going to undertake, How are your students performing? How do your stakeholders feel? All that sort of data would be what we would want to be available to the people in the school who lead and who want to make a difference, who want to make sure that you're getting value for money, as it were, as you continue to expend your energies in the school. So this is a great thing. We're not where we want to be, but I want to thank your team for taking on this area. This is an area that our schools will definitely benefit from. My word and my challenge to the team and those who are listening would be then, make sure that your plans are implementable. So you talk about school improvement planning, be realistic. So apply enough rigor to make sure that what you plan is realistic enough so that it is implementable, in particular now that we're going through a pandemic. I would also say that have the plan monitored regularly, and don't be so rigid that if you need to be flexible and to change anything, that you are unwilling to do so. Be willing to revise your targets as you go along and make sure that what you're doing is achievable. And finally, at the end of the day, make sure that there's an evaluation. So you go back again to look to say, okay, this was our plan of action for this year. How did we do? Where are we now? And where do we want to go from here? And be very realistic about that. So that's my challenge. Implement, monitor, and evaluate. Thank you so much to you and the team for taking on this very important area. I am sure that our teachers and our planners are going to be very, very appreciative of what you're doing. And I just want to thank you broadly for the way you have kept your country and the education system in your view. You could be off doing anything else. You could be having fun, but you've taken the time to be with us. And on behalf of the system, on behalf of the inspectorate, I just want to say thank you very much. And I really look forward to the good that this is going to bring to our system of education in Jamaica. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrs. Dwyer. We're very, very, very happy that you can take the time to meet with us, and also sharing the importance of these initiatives. You're right. We could be off, doing something else, but we really love this, and we look at Jamaica as, it's a place where we call home all the time, no matter where we are around the world. It's home. Every time we plan, we look at the experience of ourselves when we were little and we're in school. And we look back at that and say, if we were there, what would we want them to have? And we want proper education, the facility, the international awareness, all of that, those good stuff. So yes, we want the improvement to occur, even if it's in a timely manner, but it's, you keep on moving forward. Thank you so much. And we're looking forward to more conversations with you as the weeks and the months and the years go by. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Yes, yes. All right, so we're going to hand over to Miss Janine Jackson, and she's going to give us, I don't know if she has an overview, and then introduce our main speaker here, main presenter, Mrs. Rattigan. Ms. Jackson is the director of the Education Leadership Committee in the Jamaica Diaspora Education Task Force. And she has been doing a wonderful job with us here in the Education Leadership Committee. So I'm not gonna take too long. I'm handing over to you, Ms. Jackson, for you to do your thing. And please remember, guys, drop everything in the chat. Every question you have, please drop it in the YouTube chat, and Ms. Jackson, as well as myself or Mr. Shaker Winter, will bring them over here and we'll get them answered. Everything, every little thing that you have in your head that you want to get answered. Okay, all right. Ms. Jackson, over to you, and I'm gonna be in the background.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dice. Thank you, Ms. Dwyer, for joining us. Good evening, good afternoon, all. I appreciate this opportunity to share this space with you. Dr. Dice was so kind in all of his words, but I must say that I am but a part of a committee of committed individuals, and nothing here is from me alone. Most of the work is done by our speaker this evening, the lion's share of the work. All of the accolades belong to her. It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening. She is a mother, an educator, and an entrepreneur. She has worked in the field of education for the past 16 years and is qualified with a master's in the field of education planning and policy. Having gained these skill sets, she formed the company Education Policy Consultants. Under this portfolio, she has worked with schools at the primary level, consulting on school improvement planning, school policy development, and offering training for administrators in the development of SSE and SIP. Her attention to completing detailed policy documents led to her work in school improvement planning being used as best practice for 2 consecutive years in a row. She is currently the co-director of the JDETF Educational Leadership Committee. She has been tested and proven beyond excellent, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you our speaker, Mrs. Norda K. Rattigan.
Good evening, colleagues. I am happy to be here once again. So we are here today to complete the business of school self-evaluation and how we go about getting the right data to get the right answers, moving into the main school improvement plan. So I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to begin today's session by just doing 5 minutes out of review what we did in April so that we can catch up to what we need to get done today. Okay? All right, good. So as I said before, we're looking at school self-evaluation, using the right data to get the right answers. So I just want to welcome all on our platform today. Administrators, vice principals, teachers, SMTs, and well-wishers, board chairmen, just about anyone that is here today, we welcome you on our platform. All right, so my name is Norda K. Rattigan, and I am an educator, and I am an education policy planner. All right, so today's objective is we want to look how to disaggregate data to answer critical questions in questions 2 and 3 of the SSE process, which is school self-evaluation process, and how to draw conclusions from the data you have gathered. So we're going to just jump right into our review right now. And we're just going to look back at what is school self-evaluation. So this really is the first part of a school improvement planning. We first have to evaluate before we start to plan. And this is an internal school review. The job that NEI does is an external evaluation of the school system, and school improvement planning is an internal school review. Okay. All right, so basically what we're looking at is data, what it is, how to get it, how to use it correctly to get the answers, the baseline data that you need to do your school improvement plan. So data is really a collection of facts such as numbers, words, observations, just description of things. Data really, before I get into that, let's talk about the data warehouse. School is a place that is a data warehouse, but are we using this data warehouse to its full capacity so that we can answer critical questions that we need to answer in the education system? All right, so as a warehouse of data, I just want to say that this list that I have is not exhaustive. It continues, there's more data available, but this is just a few examples of where we can find data in the school to answer the questions that we need to answer. National exams, classwork, teacher appraisals, cumulative records, observations, notebook, and the list goes on. All right, so I want to let you know that there is a key difference between data, information, and knowledge. Data is raw and unprocessed, kind of useless just by looking at it. It's just numbers or words, just plain like that. Now it becomes information when you begin to process it, organize it, put some meaning to the data. And we call this process disaggregating the data. We're breaking it down. Now, when you have broken down the data and you put that information that you have gathered into use, by starting a program, maybe a learning program, now it becomes knowledge. The ways that we use data in schools: discover issues, diagnose situations, forecast future conditions, improve on our policy and practice, evaluate the effectiveness of the system that we offer, and to promote accountability. Okay, so we are here today to answer question 2 and 3 of the SCC process, which is guided by 11 questions that are set out to be used. In part 1, we looked at question 1 and 4 to 11. So our job here today is to see how we go about answering how well do students perform in relation to national or regional tests and exams from the very young, grade 1, in relation to age-related expectations, and how well do students progress in relation to their starting points. All right, so the first question: how well do students perform in relation to national or regional exams? All right, so at the primary level, we look at the grade 1 GOILP, grade 3 diagnostic tests, grade 4, 5, and 6 have different components of PEP, which are all connected to each other. And at the high school level, you have the grade 9, the CSEC, the CAPE, the GC, and the City and Guilds. Now, these are national tests, and some of them are regional tests like CSEC, CAPE, GCE. All right, so what do we do with this bulk of exam grades that come into us? What is the significance of them? Because really, when they're on paper just like that, they really don't have any meaning attached to them. So the first thing that we need to do is to disaggregate the data. And this means that we're breaking down the data into manageable pieces, manageable subsets. You're going to be looking for trends and patterns over a 3-year period. Why 3 years? You can't look up 1 year of data and pick up a trend. You have to have at least 3 to 5 years to see where is this going, to make a valid decision to answer critical questions. We're going to compare data by subject against the national average, and we're going to use the information to answer critical questions. All right, so when we talk about disaggregating data, we just want to look at a quick example here. So this is an example from a PEP result that was given to a school. All right, so this is called aggregated data. Means that we did not break it down into smaller subsets, manageable pieces. So we're going to begin to break down this data now. We can break it down by categorical variables like sex. We can break it down by the pathway, part 1, 2, 3. We can break it down by how many students get proficient, beginning, developing, and so on. So we're drilling down the data to get more specific answers. So the more we drill it down, the more specific the information becomes. All right, so pulling on an example from Mr. Leslie 2020. This is an example of drilling down data. So level 1, we have aggregated data. So we just know that the students perform badly. They had an average of 24.78 out of 40. We're gonna break it down some more. So we begin to disaggregate this data. So we look at different pathways. We go a little bit lower and we begin to look at the strands. What kind of strands did they excel at, or what kind did they not do well at? And then we break it down some more. And at level 5, I'm sorry. At level 5, we can now pull on some samples of work to be more specific in the information that we're gathering. All right. Now, when we talk about looking for trends and pattern, a trend is a general direction in which the movement of the data over time. And pattern is any regularity or predictability that occurs in a set of data. Now, pulling on an example from Leslie 2020, this chart was done to show a trend and pattern in online learning during COVID-19. All right, so one of the trends that you would have realized here, if you look closely at the data, is that over the 8-week period, the number of students accessing no learning platform went down when the WhatsApp trended up. And the pattern is when WhatsApp increases, the platform, with no platform decreases. All right, so we have our national data in hand, and we want to know how the students are performing against the national average. So we pull on an example from Mathematics 2019. This is from a school. And these are actual results that were tabulated for this purpose. All right, so when you look at it, the national average is in the pale pink, the school's average is in the bright pink. All right, so just looking at this data from the picture level, you do realize that nationally, the school was below in highly proficient. However, the school was able to maintain a higher average in the proficient area than the national average. Now, when we talk about PEP, there are descriptors that come along with PEP. Although we get PEP in the scores in large numbers between 200 to 300, there are actual descriptors that tell you what the scoring means. So, for a highly proficient, this child is working at an 80 to 100 average. Proficient, 50 to 79, developing 25 to 49. And if a child is at the beginning level, the child is scoring between 0 to 24. So looking at those big scores, you can relate this back to something similar that what you're familiar with, like your GSAT scores, right? Now, why we said that you must present data over a period of time so that you can pick up how your school is performing against the national average or nationally, is that 1 year of data won't give you a picture. All right, so this school, we pulled on the grade 4 results for 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019. If this school did not spend the time to break down this data and put it in a graphic form, you would not have seen, just by looking at the data, that this school was going down in their performance in mathematics over the 3-year period. If you realize that in the first year, the mastery, by the time they got to year 3 in 29, most of the students were almost mastery. So this school was going down yearly. Now the job here in doing your school self-evaluation is to identify what went wrong over the 3-year period. Did you change your subject teacher for this grade? what happened? You begin to ask yourself critical questions because something needs to be done right now so that in 2020, when the grade 4 results come back, this is not an issue again. So this is baseline data for you to put in place a plan of action for the school year 2019-2020 to improve on your numeracy scores in grade 4. Looking at an example from high school level, this shows data that was broken down to show how many students were able to pass 5 or more subjects at the grade 2 level after CSEC. All right, so this is how the school performed nationally against the national level. All right, so also in question 2, there are 2 more questions that you need to answer. In what subject or classes do they do best and why? So in the previous part, you would have made your graphs, made your tables, broken down your data. So now you can answer the question, what are they doing good at and why? You may have the answers to the why, you may not, but you begin to ask yourself critical questions. Now you need to put a team together to say, what is going on here? Why? What did we do right? So that we can continue to build on the right, to continue with this process of getting good performance in the subject area. And then the next lead on question is, in what subject or classes is the improvement needed? Now this is where you're going to look at where the students are failing. What is happening? This is a critical question you need to ask yourself as an administrator. What is going wrong? We need to fix it now. It's going to impact on the student performance. And remember, the business of education is for the students. What value added have you added to their experience at school from the time you get them to the time they leave your system? What are you going to do about this issue that you are having? All right, and then we're going to go to question 3. How well do students progress in relation to their starting points? Now, when we talk about starting points at the primary level, when you get them at grade 1, that is their starting point. At the high school level, when you get them at grade 7, that is your starting point. Capture data from the students when they enter the system. So at the high school level, you're going to now look at your grade 7 cohort coming in this year. What is their average in numeracy, literacy? How many of them are reading at the grade 7 level? So these are things that you begin to look at just as you get this cohort of students, because this is baseline data moving forward. And also in grade 1, they do their GULP. And this provides a wealth of information. You're going to know if these students are ready for formal learning. What is it that you need to put in place to make sure that these students at the end of grade 1, those who were not ready will be ready. Those who are ready, what did you put on it that they already had? And 2, you're going to look out for the students when you are doing your data analysis and your data cycles in your school. I don't know how many schools adopt the process of data cycles, but this is very important if you intend to be a data-driven school. Very, very, very important. How many of the students have been able to maintain their grades? Or have they regressed? Or are they improved on these grades while they move from grade to grade? This is where you analyze their sojourn from grade 1 to grade 6, grade 7 to grade 11, or perhaps 6th form. This will give you information on what is the weakest link in your school. Is it that when they leave grade 1, they go down, and when they go to grade 3, they go back up in their performance level again? These are questions you need to ask yourself. And if you identify the strongest link, in your grade system? What are they doing good here that we need to implement down below so that we can allow all the steps to be keep on increasing on each time the students make a step forward? You're also going to analyze your RDRI data. This is data that they capture on the students' reading level. Are they reading at the required level, below the level, or above the level that they should be reading? And then finally, you're going to make a comparison of their starting and ending point to determine the matriculation rate and their pass rate. This is very important information that you need to capture. This will tell you what did you add to the students from the time you got them at their starting point to the time that they left your school at their ending point. All right, so this is an example that we pulled on. This is internal data, not national exam, but internal assessments that the school would have done. Grade 4, 5, and 6. Look at the scores going across. Grade 4, look at grade 5, look at grade 6. If you notice in mathematics, they started out very low at 46. In grade 5, the average went up, they fell down again in grade 6. Questions you need to ask yourself: what happened? Was the level of critical thinking not pushed in the students? What happened? These are questions you need to ask yourself while you're analyzing this data, because this is baseline data that you need to plan for your school improvement coming up. Remember, your school self-evaluation is your baseline data, your starting point. This is telling you, I am at A, and now you're going to plan to say, in the next coming year, how am I going to get to B? So this is an example of how you can work your data. This is showing the students' reading level from grade 2 to 6 at year end 2020. And this is your entire school, right? Below the grade level, 52.4. And this number alone is speaking magnitude about your literacy program at your school. Majority of your school is reading below their grade level. What are you going to do about this? This is good baseline data. Am I going to put in a reading program in my SIP coming in the following year? How am I going to go about it? You can further break down this reading data to look at boys and girls. And then this will tell you now, where is the problem really? Is it the females who are below the grade level mostly, or is it the males? And the data will show you here that the males are the majority who are below the reading level. So you need to do something for the boys in your SIP coming up. All right, so that would have completed the SSE process. We have gone through all 11 questions. So we're going to look at now putting it all together. Arguably, if you want to place your school at a certain level, you have to harbor a sense of curiosity. You have to be a data-driven school. Push your school using empirical data. And this is where your SSE comes in. And here, curiosity means the desire to learn more about the observations that you're making by interrogating the data. Dig it out with a fine-tooth comb because you want to get to the meat of the matter, guys. You're gonna have to form a team in your school that is efficient of analyzing and putting together this plan that is going to drive your school forward in the next 2 to 3 years. Your SIP is a forecast of your school 3 years down the line. And not because it's forecasting 3 years down the line. As Ms. Dwyer adequately said, at the end of the year, you're going to do your school evaluation matrix. And this will tell you, what did you meet in year 1 of your SIP? What is it do I need to make adjustments to for the next coming year? And it also ties in back with your school self-evaluation. So on your SIP team, you're going to include your school board. They are part of the management structure of your school. The administrator, of course, is a must. Your SMTs, this is your senior management team. PTA are vested stakeholders. When I mean vested stakeholders, you can pull on people in your community who have the expertise to contribute to the entire process. So I work with a school because I have knowledge of school improvement and I volunteer with a school. So in my capacity, I am a vested stakeholder. And of course, you're going to include your teachers. No, it is not possible for large schools to include everybody as much as we would want to. But apart from your SIP team, there are other teams that are going to work together with the process of improving school performance. You have your curriculum implementation team as well. So anybody who don't fit in your SIP team, get them to work in a curriculum implementation team. It's a part of the process. What is the main purpose of your team? All right, so the team is really to drive the school internal process of evaluation, critically analyze the data, and to use the findings to create an improvement plan that is aligned to the strategic goals of the Ministry of Education. So the Ministry of Education presents your school with strategic goals that they need you to meet. Now you as a school in your planning, how am I going to help? How am I going to make my school be able to achieve 80% literacy as set out by the ministry, just for an example's sake? What am I going to do internally? That is where your team come in now. And good practices going forward. Have regular data cycles, guys. This is very, very important. If you're gonna use data in your school to drive your performance and your instructions, regular data cycles. And when I mean data cycle, it means this is a planned approach as to when you analyze data in your school. Are you going to do it September after your diagnostic results and you make a plan there? Are you going to go back in December and you're going to analyze based on the goals and the targets that you set, what did we meet? We're going to go back to the drawing board again. Is each grade contributing to the entire process? So you have to have a set data cycle. And guys, this comes about in your assessment plans and policies that you have in your school. Your cumulative records are important and your mark book, they must be up to date. And this is where keeping your records in safe place and up to date is important. Maintain transparency. Don't put things in your SIP that you know you didn't find in your SSE. Where is the data that back up this that you have here? Where's the evidence? I'm telling you in my SIP that I have an issue with safety and security, but in my SSE, I didn't show where the safety and security was lacking. Make sure your SSE is detailed and use the finding as the baseline data for your SIP. And that is the end of our presentation for today, guys. May I have the questions that you have?
There was only one question in the YouTube chat, and it was regarding trends and patterns. Does it mean then that for analysis purposes, it is best for school improvement plan to be done for a minimum of 3 years to a maximum of 5 years?
When you're making your forecast for school improvement plan, you should do it for at least 3 years. But as I said, you evaluate at the end of each year. Do you call it your school evaluation matrix? You would have completed that, and you're going to do your SSEs done every year. So you're going to make changes to the SIP yearly. And there are some projects that you're going to undertake in your SIP that cannot be done in a year. It probably will be, the project will take 3 years to mature. If you're going to make a new building onto the school, that is not a 1-year project. So in terms of trends and patterns now, you cannot take 1 year of data and identify a trend in the performance in your schools. You have to have something to compare it to. And 2 years is not advisable too, because maybe you had a fluke for that year. So that's why we recommend 3, 4, maybe 5 years at least for you to identify a trend.
Okay. If there are any other questions, please drop them in the chat.
Okay, Ms. Radigan, I have a question here based on the presentation. Is the documentation for primary schools and secondary schools, is it the same for both? Is it the same document, or is it the different?
Both institutions are guided by the same 11 questions covering the SSE and the SIP, but you're gonna have variations. Someone is asking about the early childhood level. All right, so the early childhood level is really monitored by ECC. And they do what is called a development plan. They have development officers that monitor them. And they also do SIPs, yes, but they are slightly governed by little different questions than what we use at the primary and high school level. And the early childhood uses their standards, the early childhood standards, to drive their development plans.
All right, one other question. How soon in the year should they start the school improvement plan to submit it by the end of the year?
All right, so ideally you'd want to start by April. You would still have to wait on your last set of exam results that will come in for the cohort that we will be leaving in July, June. So those scores will be valuable to you in answering the question about national and regional exams. So you can start the process by answering the other parts of the SSE. And then when you get that last bit of information, you just drop it in and you begin planning. Then over the summer, I think they give you some time to put your SIP in place to make plans that will be able to be done in the school year. Sensible plans, that is. Because you would need some answers at the end of school year. And remember now that you're going to be having evaluations done from different departments coming in as well at year end in terms of grades, co-curricular activities, all those things. Those things have to be analyzed and to see where we're going forward. All right, so a question is here: when forming a school improvement committee, who are the key stakeholders that should be members? I said before, you want to include your board chair, your school board, the PTA, parents, vested stakeholders who will be able to contribute to the entire process, your teachers. If it's a large school, not all can be included. Your senior management team, which include your heads of departments, your senior teachers, and your VPs, and the administrator is a must because that is the person who is leading the school. There isn't a specific number that is set because you have small schools, large schools. It depends on you. Sorry. All right, from the what data or data set is best to pull on since it refers to the very young? All right, so starting from the primary level, you have the GOILP, that is starting from the very young. That data captures them when they just come into the system. So that is your baseline data to answer the question that says from their starting point. So that is what you're going to compare to. Compare it to their ending point when they leave in grade 6. And if you're at the high school level, it would mean from grade 7, and their ending point would be when they leave at grade 11 or 12. Also, guys, your school self-evaluation does not have a set number of pages. The more detail that you get in your school self-evaluation, it provides you with more information that you need to make adequate plans going forward.
Okay, so I have one other, it's a comment question / who could they, in terms of a school, could the administrator involve a teacher or someone to help write the school improvement plan? Or it must be
process. It should be a collaborative process.
Okay.
I know there are schools out there that there are teachers working that have never seen the school SIP, have never been a part of the process. And if you're going to plan without the persons who you intend to implement that plan for you, you're going to have hiccups along the way. So it's best that you make it a collaborative process, because then they will know where we're coming from and they're going to be working with you to get to where you need to go. So you need to make your juniors a part of the process, because in fact, they are the persons who are implementing these things for you.
Okay, all right, good. I hope everybody is listening to that one. So it's not a one-man show.
I believe that has captured all of the questions in the chat. And so at this time, I would like to thank Mrs. Ratigan for a very informative, interesting presentation, very colorful, with lots of visuals. I'm sure we were able to glean a lot of information from it. And also to thank Mrs. Dwyer for bringing her remarks at the beginning of the presentation. Mrs. Ratigan, I just have to take a moment of personal privilege and tell you that you are absolutely amazing for pulling everything together and thinking through each of the questions so clearly and with such detail. I believe now everyone is well prepared to begin to use the right data to answer their questions. So thank you very, very, very much.
Before we close off, guys, I would just like to ensure that you know that part 3 is coming up, which will be the actual school improvement plan. So what we did in part 1 and 2 would have been the base work. And now we're going to go into the meat of the matter that is going to teach you how to align your school goals and targets to the ministry goals and targets using the baseline data that you would have gathered in your SSE. And baseline and the assumptions that you can pull from going forward. So please look out for part 3 coming up. Ms. Jackson and Mr. Hall will be the presenters, and I'll be in the background working with them.
Yes, indeed. So at this time, again, thank you. And we're going to turn the program back over to Dr. Dice for his remarks.
Yes, thank you so much. Ms. Jackson, we can't wait for part 3. We're gonna have, of course, Mrs. Dwyer will come on and grace us with her presence again. It's always good to have wonderful people among us who are very, very eloquent and knowledgeable about the process to get us where we want to go. So important. Ms. Ratigan, I don't know how to thank you, honestly. Miss Jackson did a fantastic job in working with you, but I mean, you have done quite wonderful work here to put a lot of people in a better position. And you know the saying, if you help one, at least one, then you have done your job here. And I'm thinking you're helping hundreds of teachers now on different levels. I want to thank you so much. And we're
Thank you,
waiting.
Dr. Dice.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for part 3 with the team. Thank you, Mrs. Dwyer. We can thank you enough as well, because we see the importance of your words earlier on, that it's super important to put all of these measures in place to continuously improve the way that we do things educationally in our school. Thank you so much, Ms. Tasheka Winter, for being in the background and also posting questions in here for all of us. Everybody knows that you're very, very hardworking back there, making sure that everything runs like a fine-tuned machine. Okay. So guys, the Education Summit is coming up next week on June 29th, June 30, and July 1st. And it's from 1 to 5 p.m. Jamaica time, which is 2 to 6 Eastern Daylight Time. We have a wonderful lineup as usual. If you were here last year, you would have seen the massive positive commotion that we went through with all the presentations right across the board. It was very, very entertaining and educational, very informative. So this year we're going to have something like that and even better with the Education Summit. And the theme for that is Teaching and Learning Reimagined. And we're going to reimagine teaching and learning. Give you a nice little segue into this is for you to think about. Mrs. Dwyer will be on with, her usual giving greetings and also sharing with us. So there's a stalwart that you need to look forward to, along with we have some other ones that pop up in the year and last year too. Dr. Joella with inclusivity, Dr. Barker with managing change, and he has some theories that he's going to share with us to put it in practical terms. Quite a lot of things coming up that time. And then later on, we have the e-learning and STEM Summit in August. We do have our reading program weekly and our Edu Talk that we're having bi-weekly. So stay tuned for those as well. Okay, thank you so much for coming on. As Mrs. Rattigan said, that you should just keep an eye out for part 3 of the school improvement plan. We're going to bring that one to you and just sum it all up with the other 2 that we have done. Some people have posted in the chat that they want access to part 1. If you look on JD Tan TV YouTube page, go on YouTube and type in JD Tan TV. It will pop up the YouTube channel for JD Tan. You will find, and just scroll through the videos or type in school improvement plan in the videos. You will find the first one, part 1, and you also will find this one when it's done. So everything is stored online for you on YouTube. If you want to download them, you can download them. You can use them however you want to use them. You can also pull them up for professional development in the summer. Professional development. You can use them for professional development. You can even scroll through the YouTube channel and find professional development sessions that we have done throughout the year for teaching and learning, for like technology, teaching with technology, all different forms of technology, Google Classroom, because we don't want you to done away with them. We want you to use them throughout the years coming, okay? Because that's where we're moving. And that's why we're talking about managing change and teaching and learning reimagined, okay? All right, we will see everybody soon with another Jaminar. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on. And I want to say big up to all the teachers out there who have made it through the pandemic and still making it with all the changes that you're going through, but you still stick to it and you're not giving up, because we're not giving up. Okay, we don't have giving up in our blood. So please don't give up. Try hard. When it's not working one way, try it another way. And reach out with your questions and comments, okay? Below the video, or send us an email in the Education Task Force and we'll respond, okay? Any needs, educational needs that you have. We don't have money. We don't do money in here, but if you want intellectual help, then we can do that as much as possible. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Rattigan. Thank you, Mrs. Dwyer. Thank you, Miss Jenny Jackson. Thank you so much. And Tasheka Winter. Thank you, Miss Tasheka Winter. We will see all of you again soon. Okay. Have a great evening. Bye, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.